Welcome back to Open a Channel, a weekly talkback series with myself and Steven Kelsey. If you don't know my name already, I don't know how you're watching Dying of Exposure at this point. Probably to hate on it from places I post this on Reddit. But this is a Star Trek Discovery series. It's a positive vodcast from two people that actually like modern era Star Trek. I know that's strange to see on the internet, but ratings disagree with you, so you can all just... what's a non-toxic way to... You can all just leave, I guess, at this point. Because if you don't like Star Trek Discovery, you're not going to like this podcast. And I am joined with the consummate professional Star Trek fan, the well-lauded Sarah Gulde. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Always. And let's just jump into it. Episode 4, we're into the middle of the season. We're past Act 1. We're in the middle of the season. Episode 4, Forget Me Not, I believe is the title of the episode. General feelings. How did you feel about Episode 4?
I feel like if your heart didn't grow 3 sizes, you might not have a soul. Are people who hate on this current season of Star Trek just completely feelingless automatons? Because I feel like this season is just filled with big emotions every episode. Real, earned big emotions, too. Something that Discovery has struggled with. But, all right, so let's just jump into it. We always just kind of talk about our favorite things, our big important moments that meant something to us as we watched it. And to be clear, Sarah and I don't watch this together. It's not something that we watch together. We watch it separately. We don't really plan out what we're going to talk about. This is just sort of a first impressions / just deep love of everything Star Trek kind of podcast. So start us off, Sarah. Yeah, we're basically just two friends talking about Star Trek, and we happen to put it out on the internet.
Well, this is the only way we could do it, both quarantine-wise and because you live a whole 2.5 hours away, which might as well be across the country, even though it's pretty much there. What were some moments? What were some big moments for you in this episode? And we don't have to go linear. We kind of, whatever jumps to mind.
We kind of got like an A plot line, a B plot line, and then some little things going on in the background too. So we had Adira and finding out their big tragic love story. Mm-hmm. And we had the big Thanksgiving dinner that went horribly wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But then turned out okay in the end.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also find out there's something going on with the ship too in the background. Mm-hmm. And so we can talk about all those things in any order. Which one do you want to start with?
I would like to start with, let's go with the Thanksgiving dinner run of this. Actually, no, I'm going to start with none of these things. I know from our conversations that we just kind of gush about every actor, but that gets some lead time, because there's another kind of plot with the Thanksgiving dinner that's kind of the underplot of that. Wilson Cruz on this episode. Oh my goodness. I was so glad to see him featured.
Yeah, because we didn't get any Wilson Cruz last episode, I don't think.
No, not any. And him being the heart of the ship is just a gift. Wilson Cruz is so good. Every moment he's on screen, and this episode really gives him a lot of time on it. Post-trauma, post-drama, just being a capable, good, confident doctor working with the ship.
So I grew up in high school watching him as Ricky on My So-Called Life.
Oh, yeah.
And it just makes me so happy to see him all grown up and so successful and so self-confident and happy in who he is. And I think that just comes through from him personally into his character.
100%. There's just oozes confidence on the screen. It's funny because he's a doctor, right, and everything, but he's obviously also concerned about the mental health of the crew as well, and that just shines through. And it feels something that is kind of has been absent on Discovery, which is sort of the the ever since Next Gen going forward, the sort of I'm here to talk to you about your problems role that on DS9 they kind of played it in pairs where they just kind of change, each person had their person kind of thing, versus say Next Gen. Next Gen had it dually in Troy and Guinan, and then Voyager and then Enterprise kind of sort of almost tried to make Archer that role, weirdly enough, because he's a giant Boy Scout, so he wants to doing well. But I really think that helps in a show to give a platform for emotional conversation.
And I feel like the writer's room has matured in their handling of mental health. I feel like when Hugh came back at first and he was dealing with PTSD, there was nobody helping him. And everyone's just kind of like, okay, you can be all right now. But I feel like this season, someone in that room has a better grasp of what depression is like and what dealing with PTSD is like. And they're doing a better job of handling it.
I think they are. I think they just previously, it was the problem that I'll save it for a little bit. I agree with that point. We'll get back to that. But let's talk about the Thanksgiving dinner. Let's talk about the dinner. We don't often get to see the bridge crew eat with each other in previous Star Treks. I don't remember a lot of episodes where it was like, let's all sit down to dinner. It's not a common Star Trek episode position.
I just watched In the Cards the other day from DS9, and it's another dinner that just doesn't go well. They don't end up at each other's throats, but everyone is completely depressed. So, yeah, there aren't a lot of happy dinners in Star Trek.
You know what? So the dinner is fantastic because it plays very real, right? It's a very honest dinner. Giorgio is great in it. They had our my boy, whose name I can never remember, which means that he can't really be my boy.
Linus?
Linus. Yeah, they had Linus back, just in the background, just chilling, and it made me very happy. He had a couple lines. I'm like, yeah, Linus. How do you, okay, I'm going to use this as a kind of a gateway. How do you feel like this reflects on Captain Saru? Because, like, this is very much, I know he's commander, but he's captain temporarily, and so I'm just going to refer to him as the captain, because he's the captain right now, so.
Yeah. I mean, poor Saru, he tried so hard. He made such a beautiful dinner.
I think he did. I think it's kind of amazing to have a captain that like leads with empathy as a real strong function. Like, the whole reason the dinner happens is because Culber brings up to him that physically everyone's fine, mentally, and then he asks the computer, which we'll get into in a bit, what are options for helping the emotions of the crew and everything. And I think he's very much we discussed it in the second episode with his and Tilly's dynamic, which comes back up again in the dinner, is that he's just a very warm captain. A very, for lack of a better term that I can think of right now, they've always cast the captains in a very kind of masculine set in one fashion or another. There's a number of really negative comments, but one of the strong actual positive roles is that Kate Mulgrew was such a perfect Janeway, because, like, you're out in the middle of nowhere, you need a captain that's hard steel, like, when they need to be, and I feel like that was very much a lot of Janeway's arc, is sort of like, making those hard kind of those decisions every time, being very intellectual, very driven. These are commonly applied to masculine qualities, even though they're not specifically that. And Saru is very opposite of that in a lot of the ways that he approaches things. And it's nice to see on a starship, because that's what good leadership is empathy and concern and communication.
as much as I like the previous captains, but.
And I feel like a big theme of this season is do the job the way that's right for you. So we have Tilly coming into her own and doing things her way, and we have Saru being a captain in his way. I did like that he mentioned Pike and said, "Oh, he makes it look so easy."
Mm-hmm.
But then realized, oh, he just needs to do things differently.
Yep, he just needs to approach it. I'm also, and this is going to be a lot of gushing about Saru, but I also love this because this is the second time he's consulted the computer about things, and I love the idea of them showing us a captain who we know is a commander that's kind of been pushed into the captain role. Showing us a captain that isn't inventing all of the answers from himself. He's researching, he's considerate, he's thinking about things. And
if they were home, he'd be consulting with other captains.
Exactly. And that's really cool to see, because that's how leadership works, is relying on the tools and advice of the people that you have around you. And they discuss the advice a lot in previous Star Treks. There's always, an options meeting in a ready room somewhere. But they've never really gone into this, like, you have this super powerful computer. In this case, a little bit more powerful than your average computer. Why not ask it things, rather than say the unsolicited data advice, a la Picard, or the sort of warring voices of DS9. Not really warring voices, but the many voices of DS9. So let's talk about that computer. Talk about it. The sphere is there, mm-hmm.
and it's sentient, and their reaction to having a sentient creature like combined into every system on the ship is like, well, okay, hope it's nice.
Yeah, well, so we as the audience know a little bit more about it because it's a short trek, right? Calypso is a short trek, and we have this warm computer voice and everything, and so that was like a nice Easter egg for the people that actually watched the short treks. It was like, oh, goody, they're back. But yeah, let's hope it's nice, right? Like, I mean, the sphere was trying to protect itself. It kind of it's not so much an agreement so much as it's like, okay, well, Discovery will protect me, and then that's it, right? Like that's it. So hopefully, I mean, it definitely leaves the plot open. But
yeah, I would just personally be a little more worried about the situation and not be like, okay, let's just watch the movie and have some popcorn.
Yeah, maybe if they told, like, maybe if it wasn't a conversation between Saru and Culber, maybe if it, if like Nan or Giorgio or someone was in that room, there might have been like wait, what did you say the computer did? AI is usually bad, unless it's data, or anything related to data, or unlike, well, I guess AI is fine in the Star Trek universe. There's been a lot of good AI in the past. Yeah, we get the computer, we get the scenes with the crew, the explosion. I mean, finally Detmer. We're all watching it happen.
Oh, yeah. She should never do haikus ever again.
No, that was not a good art form. That was a little pushed, but it was a kind of an inevitability, and it's kind of perfect to throw her against Stamets because Stamets is the jerk, right? It's very easy to empathize with someone that's kind of attacking him because he is attackable. Again, this relates to his relationship with Jet Reno. This relates to his previous behaviors and his behavior in this episode with Tilly at the front half of the episode.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering where that came from, but now that you mention it, it was probably to make us dislike him a little bit so Detmer could also yell at him.
Yeah, I also think that they might get into, and they might be more slow playing it, which again is something that's kind of good this season. Slow playing, it's like his feeling of, like, again, he's not an engineer. He's not Geordi. He's not Miles. He's not B'Elanna. He's a
astromycologist.
Yeah, astromycologist. Yeah, that's the word. Astromycologist. that's not an engineer. And so the fact that he's now got to be a part of the function of the ship, and that there's no time and no expectation, at least immediately, of him ever get to go back to him doing research, because they need all the crew that they have to survive, means that this job needs to be as, if not more important than whatever his life's work was, and it ties into his life's work, so that adds to it. So I definitely, from a very male ego fragility standpoint, I definitely relate to Stamets a lot, and I feel him. He's just also doesn't need to be such a self-righteous ass all the time. And so it's nice to see him there's evolution. He comes back, he apologizes quickly. It's not days or anything like that. He lost his temper, everyone kind of went to cool their heads, and he came back and immediately apologized to Tilly, which is like character growth, right? It's you're a better human being than you were in season 1, Stamets.
Your crankiness is much shorter lived.
Yeah, it's much shorter lived. What else? Before we get into the whole, I guess we'll call it the A plot. They were kind of very shared A-B plots. Like, they very much felt like they ate both the screen time equally. But, well, before we get into the Trill plot line, are there any other things from before the end of the episode, from the Thanksgiving or the conflicts or the stuff on ship that you wanted to talk about?
I really liked Giorgio's portrayal of your goth cousin at Thanksgiving dinner, who's just being a jerk to everybody and then steals the wine.
The jokes were so on point. It was such a perfect Michelle. A lot more humor in this season of Discovery. A lot more fun with the characters. And so I'm really happy to see it. Especially since she has to be portrayed as dangerous, because she is dangerous. To have just like some calm moments where it's like, yeah, but what if she's just kind of a sassy, annoying for this portion of the day? All right, so they get to man, did they come around to that I don't remember who my past identities were in the Trill, to resolving that quickly. Like, that became the next episode plot, right? That was super fast. But okay, so this is the second time, because I think they did, I can't remember the name of the DS9 episode, where they actually go to the pools.
Oh, shoot, I just heard it on Ready Room today. I can't remember either.
Yeah, but yeah, they'd gone to it once before in DS9. And so it wasn't completely on tread ground what that part of the plot was. But how did you feel about Trill, the Trill plot overall? And of course, Ian Alexander and Blue Del Barrio, Adira and Gray. How'd you feel about that whole shindig?
So I felt like there were definitely parallels with their visit to Earth, in terms of the Trill being a planet on their own and being kind of afraid of outsiders and afraid of, opening up. Loved, and I don't know the actress's name who plays Ronnie on Schitt's Creek.
Oh, yeah.
It was perfect. And I want her whole outfit, including the earrings.
Yeah.
And yeah, before we get into Blue and Ian and their wonderful jobs, I really liked what they did with Trill, and what they did. You know what I feel like was missing was a big matte painting of a city on Trill.
I did kind of. I was a little sad that they didn't come back to that, because they came back to San Francisco when it was People of Earth, right? They came back to the Bay Area Starfleet Academy area, both with the tree and then the shot, the leaving shot, to show the bridge and everything like that. They didn't. I was waiting for that Trill homeworld, like, kind of classic, even if it hadn't been a city, but more of like if they wanted to sell Trill as more of a agrarian society, and everything like that, a very kind of like spread out, not having that totally missed opportunity. I really liked them first getting there, because Starfleet, by its nature, and especially a human-driven Starfleet in Star Trek, doesn't have a lot of spirituality to it. And they've always solved that in the past by having an alien race have something like that. Obviously, DS9, it's a through line. And I think that the way that the Trill approach the symbiotes is a very, like, grounded in just sort of, like, factual science that exists in their world, but treated as revered, like, spirituality in a lot of ways. And I think that they got that opportunity to kind of play that.
Yeah, I mean, science can definitely evoke wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think Star Trek does a good job with that in the absence of religion most of the time.
Yeah. It's nice to see. It's definitely kind of like the initial unwelcoming half, because it's such a great, like, dynamic of, we don't have enough hosts for all of our symbiotes. It's offensive, not for any scientific reason, though they just thought it incredibly unlikely that an alien host could survive, but offensive for a cultural reason that's very much tied into the respect and like earned idolization of the idea of becoming a host in the Trill community. And having those two sides basically just, like, right there, real fast, a little too fast for my taste, but real fast. If it's just like one person against it, give us back the symbiote, we'll kill you, for separation. Other person for, you know, like, this is the new way. And then sort of like the moderate sort of like, well, we're not going to break our previous customs, but we're also not going to break our previous customs. So this Trill is dead to us. The symbiote is dead to us if it's not part of that. And it was a good kind of complicated social ramification moment that felt a little rushed to me, but overall still good. Just a little bit quick to kind of like I think they very much wanted to tell this story in an episode, not make it feel like they were dragging it out. And so they had to pick and choose what they could spend a lot of time on, right?
Wasn't it a storyline back in Deep Space Nine that there were actually way more Trill that could be hosts than the government was letting on?
Mm-hmm. Which implies, maybe that implies that either that many Trill have died, or that the government never properly told the Trill.
Who knows?
I've seen a little bit of criticism about the sort of like initial like suspiciousness and everything like that, and they're like, you know, with the Trill, they're gonna send her off. Like this seems inexplicable, and I'm like, I don't know if you remember Deep Space Nine's Trill outside of Dax. They were not like the most open culture about their stuff. They were big on their culture. They were super friendly, super cooperative with the Federation, as long as no one tried to. It wasn't like Betazoids, where it was like, oh, you know, marry whoever. You know, let's get down, let's get naked and have a wedding. They were not lax. They were just kind, and so I like this. And then we have Gray. We have the introduction. We have Adira's whole like piece, all of Adira Michael's moments. Really like a standout moment for Blue as an actor, and they knocked it out of the park. I think this episode.
Yeah, you know, I think they got me, because last week I thought they were just kind of a little unsure of themselves as an actor, and I forgot that that's how Trill are before they get their hosts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think they were actually just acting that well that I fell for it.
Yeah, I think I mean, especially introducing how little they knew of themselves or what was happening. It's like, no, this totally makes sense. Also, they're a 16-year-old. They're a child on the ship. They're a little Wesley Crusher. Brilliant young person. With that, and then Ian Alexander is great. The scenes between Gray and Adira, just so warm.
I love seeing him so confident. Did you watch the OA?
Yeah, I did watch the OA.
Okay, I loved him in the OA when he played this really unsure younger teenager.
Yeah.
And then seeing how much he's grown. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I do like that it was like even before the symbiote transfer, and then more so after it. right? All that aged wisdom confidence just comfortably coming off of him. And the choice to keep him around as an actor in the series is, which we knew that there's no reason to announce a single episode cast as a stunt. And it's not in today's climate. But no, we knew Ian Alexander was going to be main cast. And so I was really curious. I was like, what's going to happen? Oh, neat. And so we get to see their rapport more. His rapport with Blue as Adira is fantastic. And we get another romance. We get another like warm, strong couple, which it seems like this season is really driving like allegiances in the crew and bonds to drive home its overarching plot.
I kind of wonder if Adira is ever going to get to do that thing Dax did, where all of their previous hosts went into people.
Yeah, that would be super neat. I'm really curious about this. I'm really curious how they explore this. I mean, we spent so much time with Dax in DS9 as Jetsia and then Ezri. We spent so much time with Dax as a character, and the worry I had was if they're doing another Trill, it's like, okay, they made it a human host. I was thinking they were going to drag that plot out. Like I don't remember, I don't know what my past lives are. And then they're like, boom, here's the... solve that problem. Here's some emotional trauma. You get through it. You work through it. You get access to these past lives again. You get to speak your names. But it made me like, I was worried. I'm like, are we rehashing a character type that we've definitely seen that doesn't have enough divergence from a DS9 story? And immediately they're like, nope. The current host was in a relationship with the previous host. That was extremely short-lived. Now there's all this dynamic that we've seen as little pieces that we can now explore more so and answer more questions, I guess, that were left off from DS9, because that's really the only series that spends any real time with it. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anything with their interaction. Other things that I really love in this.
I like where they ended, where it's like, okay, we're going to go find the Federation now.
Yeah.
And you're kind of wondering, are you?
Are you? Is it? You know, you can watch the trailer, obviously, like a little bit, but not really. Like from the trailer seems to be the thing. I like where they ended. I like the final scene. I love the final scene. The crew in the shuttle bay watching a giant Buster Keaton movie, gathered around doing popcorn, living that actual R&R sort of thing. Again, a Linus Giorgio kind of like quiet flash scene of them interacting again, which I'm really curious if they're again with the bonding, with the kind of pairing, because it's like we've got Detmer and we've got Awosakan as like obviously having a deeper friendship, a deeper bond. You know, Tilly and Saru, deeper bond. Michael and like everyone. This is kind of where Michael's going. Stamets and Culber are back, right? Even I'm not gonna know their names. Their bridge crew who have like no lines.
Reese and Bryce.
Who
are like the only two people who seem to be adjusting well to their new situation.
I'm real curious if they're just keeping them around like they're gonna give them some time, but I'm really curious if they're keeping them around as sort of like, and then there's these normal two dudes over here that are just like living life, you know. They're secretly the audience. They're just like, this is neat. I'm so glad I get to be on this crew. But Reese and Bryce, like, yeah, from the opening log to every moment that they're just on screen, it's like, yeah, they seem to be fine. They've adjusted well to this. Yeah, it's just another
heartwarming episode. Another episode that ends on positivity and bonding and warmth. And a very Star Trek episode. A very, again, dipping back into that kind of classic. They're doing that a lot this season, whether it's in the framing or whatnot.
Planet of the Week.
In Planet of the Week, little Planet of the Week, little bit of a, like, one side believes this, other side believes this, Federation drives it home. And as much as one might critique the actions of Michael against the next gen, it's like Michael has always had big original series / Kira vibes to me, where it's just like, I'm gonna do what I think is right at the moment. That's what I'm going every time, regardless of negative consequence. And I think in this format, it plays a little bit more familiar than I think a lot of people were picking up on it in the first couple seasons of Discovery. Or it's like, they're breaking protocol, they're ignoring their superiors and everything. And it's like, yeah, welcome to every ship, including Enterprise D, since time in memoriam of Star Trek. That's what they do.
Yeah, she had her moment shooting the Trill, right?
Yeah, stunning the Trill. Good action scene. You know, is this like, this isn't protocol? No, it's not. just going forward with it, knowing that it's the right thing to do. It's the thing that Discovery needs. It's not, and that, like, it's their only chance, really, to find the Federation. So it's kind of a desperate thing, and it's also the right thing to do for Adira. It's also the right thing to do for the person that that Culber specifically was like, it's you, Michael. You're the only person on this ship right now that could even remotely mentally handle this. Everyone else is too stressed out.
Except Reese and Bryce.
Reese and Bryce is fine. That would have been a very different episode if it was Adira, Reese, and Bryce on the planet. I'm waiting for those two to chest bump. I just love them as as this background, just because they have. I'm sure they're deeper characters, and I hope that they get their time. But in my mind, they're just like high-fiving in the back all the time and just being like, yeah. They're just good time. They're just good time boys in the background. But yeah, it's great. It's great. So it's theory time. We'll just do for the next episode, since we know they're going to, in theory, meet the Federation, going to the goal, which, again, it's funny that I feel like they're taking their time more this series with stuff. They're letting calmer moments exist. They're letting a dinner scene happen. They're letting, a movie scene happen. They're letting, emotional conversations between Detmer and Culber, be parts of episodes, right? They're not rushing through everything.
It's so much more character based than last season. I found last season a little bit confusing with the whole plot about the Red Angel and the lights, and that were sometimes there and sometimes weren't, and all of that stuff. But this season, I feel like they've chosen a very simple story, and so they have more time too.
Yeah, they're just fish out of water. They've done it in Star Trek before with multiple series, and so this isn't new ground for them. The only new ground is that in this version of the series, there's a lot of details that really change the dynamic of what this means versus, say, Voyager and Enterprise, where Voyager was like, well, we're lost in space, essentially, and we have to find our way home. And with Enterprise, it was, well, we're finding everything. We're explorers in space, and we have to find our purpose. And with Discovery, they almost already know their purpose, and they're not lost so much as in space. They're just lost in time, and so it's just like we've just lost everything we know. But it's shading of but we have our purpose. Our purpose is the Federation. Our purpose is to set right and figure out what the fuck happened with why the burn happened. But yeah. So yeah, thoughts, theories. Next episode. What do you think? What do you think's gonna happen in the next episode? What do you think is gonna be the twists and turns of them finding the Federation?
So this is the 5th episode of, I want to say, a 13 episode season.
Mm.
I think we're going to find out what the actual plot is for this season. We had a lot of character stuff going on, but I think we're going to find out what the main story is going to be. But I don't know what that is.
I think that I'm still sticking with the Federation overall is going to have a very good, positive, if not worn down hope vibe. But because it's the 5th episode, a part of me thinks that they might pull something that would be a bit frustrating, which is that it might not be the Federation. They might think it's the Federation, and in fact, it's just like an organization, like a grouping of people, but it's a kind of like a feint. Maybe it's like
the Vidrash.
It's the Vidrash. It's something. So like I wouldn't say worried. That plot is fine. I'm suspicious of it. I'm suspicious if this season isn't about finding home, not only with the people that you're with, but also a place that you can spread out from, like finding back the Federation. If this season isn't about that and discovering the mystery of the burn as its whole season, then I am, like you, very curious what the main arc is going to be, because I thought that was going to. Initially, I thought the mystery of what the burn was going to be the arc, and then they just quickly answered that question. And then I'm like, okay, but like why is more important, so that's good. But
yeah, so before the season started, like at the end of last season, I thought this season was going to be about Discovery saving the Federation's soul. Like I thought something was going to be seriously rotten at the core.
Yeah.
And that Discovery was going to have to save it.
And that might be the case. Still, they absolutely. I mean, they definitely set up the galaxy for that. The galaxy very much feels that way. And so I could see that. I could still see that too. They get there and it's disappointing, but unlike Earth, Trill, anyone else that they've meet, all of these scavengers and couriers that they meet, like it's like, all right, well, time to clean up our house now and fix the Federation back to being what it is, and what it's supposed to be. And I think that would be kind of poetic for Discovery, for a show that people have yelled and screamed and whined online. It's like, this doesn't feel like the real Federation, to end up being the show where it's like, no, this is actually quite accurately a return to the real Federation in the timeline, right? Like in the moment that they're in. So I never felt like those complaints were grounded in much. I always felt like it was from a bunch of people that had just had a bunch of memories of Next Gen and were like projecting the hell out of their memories of Next Gen onto every Star Trek they could possibly see. But so I'm like, most of these ideas weren't introduced in Discovery, y'all. Not one of them. Section 31 was a thing in DS9, and Enterprise. I don't know if it was in. I can't remember. It wouldn't have needed a lot to be, or wouldn't have made a lot of sense. Can't remember.
And I think this is a Star Trek for our times. So, saving the soul of the thing you believe in is something that, we can all understand.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, I mean, so last question. How do you feel about this episode? So far, we've had 4 episodes. We had the first 2 episodes, which very much feel like the two sides of the same coin kind of episode. It's like, here's what Burnham did for a bit, and then here's what Discovery did, and then they got to reunite. But now that we've had this, how do you feel about this on the lexicon? Because though I love Discovery, every show has great episodes, good episodes, all right episodes. Not a lot of filler time in a 13 episode season. Not gonna have a lot of like romance ghost plot line, but or the entire plot is Troy has headache from mysterious stranger. Mysterious stranger is bad. Yes, the writers are bad at writing women on again.
the end. They get lucky a lot of times. They had great actors, but a lot of times I felt like going back and rewatching Next Gen, I'm just like, they do a lot better with this on DS9 and Voyager. They do a lot better with these characters. I feel like they don't know what they want these. I don't know. I don't think it's deliberate. I think it's just kind of happening. A little cringy, but yeah, how do you feel?
This one was a little stressful, and I think you're right. They did move Adira's story forward so quickly. It didn't feel as much like they were moving the season story forward as much as they were just kind of like jumping over this and setting up the rest of it.
Yeah, it just felt a little bit more rushed than I think it needed to be. But again, I don't know what the rest of the season holds. So maybe they didn't have a lot of, like, maybe when they were mapping it out, they're like, all right, well, in order for us to have enough time for this other story, we need to literally show the problem and solve the problem. Which I guess makes sense. It's not like Discovery's an exploration ship, right? It's literally trying to find the Federation. It has a tool to try and find the Federation. It knows where to get that person the most help, so it of course just goes there next. It's almost like if normal ships in Star Trek, non-DS9 episodes of Star Trek, were like open world RPGs. And even though Discovery is becoming more episodic, it's still very much a narrative game. Like they're not there to wander. They're there to accomplish goals. And so their goal is find the Federation. So I guess it kind of makes sense that they were just like there. Maybe if they'd hit something unrelated before the Trill episode, maybe like one episode in between, and then we get to like on their way, so it ended up being like a stumbling block to getting to that solution. Like a Harvey Mudd episode, right? Like not that they could use Harvey Mudd, though I better see his ass on Strange New Worlds. I better see him on Strange New Worlds.
Speaking of people we better see, there better be some more Book and Grudge pretty soon.
Yeah. I'm thinking after episode 5, if they find bad information or they find out, like, if it goes badly, they're gonna bring him back in episode 6. It's gonna be like, well, that didn't work. Guess we have to find other allies to try and fix this problem. Let's go.
Better call the space pirate.
Better call the space pirate, because the space pirate is a space pirate for good. His whole jive is very Federation of him, of save endangered species. It's very Star Trek 4. So save endangered species. So yeah. I don't know. There's a lot. The season is still early enough that it hasn't sort of like road mapped itself. And I think that's exciting because that is absolutely counter to 100% of Discovery so far, which is in episode 1. You pretty much have a season. You pretty much know what the plot's going on in the season, like what the big conflict's going to be. And in this one, it's still kind of up in the air. You think you know, and then they keep moving it around. Every time I think I'm confident that this is going to be like an arc thing, they're just like, no, we're going to give you a half answer or even a significant answer, and then that's just going to open up more questions. So I like it. I'm very excited. I don't know. Do you have anything more?
Just excited to see next week.
Yep. Yeah. If you want to follow more Star Trek information, where can they find you on the internet, Sarah?
I am on Twitter at Sarah Miyoko, SARAH, M as in Mary, IYOKO, and my fanzine, Star Trek Quarterly, is on Facebook.
And aren't you on another like important podcast of some kind?
Yes, I am a co-host of Women at Warp, which is a intersectional feminist Star Trek podcast, and we put out new episodes bi-weekly, so you can find us at womenatwarp.com and Women at Warp on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Excellent. And I'm of course Steven Kelsey, Dying of Exposure on YouTube's social media. You'll find me. If you're watching this, you probably already found me. Also, I have a message for everyone. I was very proud because I posted the last episode the day it uploaded
on a lot of like Reddit groups and Facebook groups and everything like that. That was the first time I didn't just broadcast it on the existing social media and everything. And I'm very proud that congratulations. You and I, even though it's a decently watched for my channel's numbers, a solid watched for my channel's numbers episode, and actual decent retention to get into some YouTube analytics. It's the first YouTube video I've ever put up that has more dislikes than likes, and I love that. But for those that weren't too cowardly and actually stuck it out for the entire thing, get in the comments. Why do you dislike it? I will argue to death with you about it. I am more than happy to do that. Sarah's got things to do. I do not. I am a house spouse in a pandemic. I've got nothing. So feel free to come at me in those comments and say, you're totally wrong about this. And you know what? Just because I'm feeling feisty and because we've gone through the election week, if you will, feel free to dig into the personal insults. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I've been in it all week. So where's that rage going to go afterward? But yeah, for me and for Sarah, this has been an awesome journey of just enjoying Star Trek Discovery. Great season. Super excited for episode 5. Thank you very much for watching Open a Channel, and we will see you again next week.
Bye.